So I recently got a 2-stage heat pump installed, and the heat pump has been coming online really loudly and seeming to operate in a single stage mode. So I wanted to take a look here and make sure everything was correct. I found actually, if we pull the thermostat off, that only Y and W are hooked up and wired. And my understanding is in a dual stage system or a multi-stage system, you actually want Y2 and potentially W2 wired up. So if we actually remove the thermostat from the wall, we can see, get it off there. You can actually see that there are some extra wires wrapped around the line. So I think we can repurpose these to actually run Y2. Let's look at the air handler downstairs. Before looking at the air handler, I'm going to make sure that the breakers are off for the air handler and the heat pump. So now I can safely crack open these components and see what's going on inside. Here we are in my basement at the air handler, and we're going to open this top panel here, which is how you actually service the unit, to take a look inside at the control board and see what our wiring looks like. So I've previously loosened these. They probably won't be finger tight for your system. Alright, so we've actually got the panel on the air handler open, and we can see inside of the control board. Before mucking with anything, I'm going to just use a voltage detector to make sure everything is off. Okay, cool. So, want to do that before touching any potentially energized electrical components. So you can see here these two brown wires that are basically just sheathings that contain the wires that are running up to the thermostat and the heat pump. The top brown wire there is actually running up to the thermostat, and the bottom brown wire there is running out to the heat pump. So you can see that there are some unused wires wrapped around the brown sheathing, and I think we can repurpose the smaller brown wires on each of those larger brown wires to run the Y2 signal, which controls the second stage. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, here we are outside at the heat pump. This is a Carrier Performance 2-stage heat pump. And we're gonna unscrew this panel here and see what we've got going on at the control board. I've pre-loosened the screws, so they should be pretty easy to get off. Okay, so we've got that panel off, and again, I'm going to use the voltage sensor here to make sure that this is not energized. Okay, cool. Doesn't look like it. Now let's see what we've got. So when I looked at this board initially, it was particularly confusing because on the board, I'm not sure if you can see, but there's no clearly designated Y2 input on this control board. But what I've been reading on the internet, and what I verified in the wiring diagram for this, is that there is a blue wire that you basically wire nut together with the Y2 wire that's coming in from the thermostat. So I'm going to hunt around and try and find that blue wire. Big confusion here was in the wiring diagram for this board, they show Y2 as not actually being on the control board, but being a spare blue wire. Well, when I cracked this thing open, I didn't see any loose blue wires. I guess the geniuses that did this install placed that blue wire into this part of the control board. You can see obviously it's not hooked to anything. So what I'm going to do now is actually splice this with that extra brown wire that's wrapped around the larger brown wire down there, and that's going to carry the Y2 signal. Here we are. We're going to splice the notorious blue Y2 into our unused brown that's coming off of the air handler inputs. So what we've got to do here is actually strip the auxiliary brown wire that we're going to repurpose. So I think it's about an 18 gauge. I've got this nice Klein Tools wire stripper here that is worth its weight in gold for sure. Okay. Looks stripped. Yeah, I've stripped some of the sheathing, which isn't great. Let's see if I've got some electrical tape. I'll fix the sheathing up later, but in any case, we've got a small wire nut here. And so we're just gonna align the blue and the brown together. Trick with wire nuts is to get the wires straight against one another to the degree that you can, and then twist. Okay, so that should be good, and I'll come back and fix that stripped sheath at some point soon. So let's close up the heat pump here, and then we'll go back into the air handler to make the connection. Okay, so we're back downstairs in the air handler, and you can see we've got our two wire sets coming in here. The top one is from the thermostat, bottom one is from the heat pump outside, and I've isolated these two brown wires that we're going to splice together much in the same way we did outside. So I'll do that now. Okay, cool. So we've got those two wires stripped and spliced, and I've labeled the wire nut there with Y2 because otherwise I don't know how anybody would know. So let's go back to the thermostat and see how we're doing. And we're back where it all began, here at the thermostat. So I've stripped the auxiliary wire we're going to repurpose as Y2, and now all we have to do is awkwardly with one hand while I'm holding the camera reinsert the wire here. Oh, this is harder than I thought it would be. And I did a pretty laughable job of stripping that wire, but we've got it reinserted, so let's boot up the thermometer and see where we're at. Okay, that's promising. All right, now we're going to go advanced setup, HVAC equipment, and we're going to select heat pump 2. All right. And it looks like we're all good. I hear the machine on. So now we've got our full 2-stage heat pump working, despite the best attempts of the installers.